necessarily, but just tonight it was because I had just got just got back to the house like literally 2 minutes ago. Pulled in just in time. So
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, cool. All right, I guess we can get started then.
all
Um,
right, let the games begin. Welcome to Sean today.
well, actually, so we just call this the Sean and Eric show. It
All right.
just happens to be on SeanToday.com.
Yes, yes.
But how you doing, man?
Man, I'm feeling grateful. It's Sunday. I tried not to work too hard today, and that felt
Yeah.
good. Take a little bit of pause and be ready for the week to come. So, um, I'm yeah, just
Do anything eventful over the weekend?
oh, went and looked at a couple different properties.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and nothing too wild.
Now
Nothing.
you're looking for a property to buy. Are you is it for
Yeah,
yourself or is it for
yeah, for myself and a friend of mine from Ohio came down here. He's interested in collaborating with me
yeah.
on a little project. So, it's kind of in development as we speak, and more will be revealed on that as the right place comes in at the right time.
Oof, that sounds pretty awesome. That sounds exciting actually.
Yeah, it is exciting. It is exciting.
Well, I actually speaking of the weekend, I just got back not too long ago from a there was an event at Sidwell Friends School, which is that elite private school that the Obama sent their kids, and they had a Lunar New Year festival, and it was actually pretty
What?
sweet. Yeah, it was pretty nice. And the one interesting thing was it had like uh, different events, and it opened up with one of like a speaker, and she was saying, and I want to get the quote because I posted it on my Facebook because I thought it's pretty nice, and it basically said, "If you contribute to the happiness of others, you'll find the true meaning of life." And I thought that was pretty interesting, from a philosophical standpoint. And I wanted to take a moment for our listeners to kind of digest that, and I wanted to hear what you think, Eric, about that quote on this
Oh,
contribution to the happiness of others, and that
it's
is the meaning. That is the meaning of life.
mm, well. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. There was a part of me that would completely agree with that, and now another part of me, in my own search and development, feels
Mhm.
like it can be a trap, and society can actually. I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me taken it in the wrong way. I think it's important that we're working towards the betterment of not just ourselves, um, and it's important to also like to truly live in a place from the actions you're taking are not just for your own gain. I think it's really important to embody that level of being. Um, Although also I think there are situations in which like it can be toxic for a person where if they're doing things just to make other people happy, but they're not happy themselves, there's something wrong there.
Oh man, there's so much to be said about that. That's absolutely right. So it really comes down to like purpose, right? What drives you? And for me, for virtually all my life, um, those words really resonate with me, right? Because I dedicated my life to one of service, right? Helping others, and being there to do something that provides an impact to the benefit of others. Um, everything from joining the military, serving for all those years, serving the federal government in my various capacities, building businesses one of which Free Mobile America is one of my businesses, and the entire purpose of that business is to provide provision, cellular connected devices, and provide a cellular connection, a subscription at no cost to our customers. And our customers are Americans that are generally in need, identified through various reasons, like if they are on Medicaid, if they have a Native American tribal affiliation, if they're on WIC, just a large number of things. And it's really a program that's we participate in conjunction with the Federal Communications Commission, the Affordable Connectivity Program, which, by the way, that program was no longer funded by Congress recently.
No.
So we yeah, so we had to pause. We had to pause signing new people. People are contacting us all the time on freemobileamerica.com. Like, hey, we'd like to get service, and get our free device, and then also get our free subscription. But we can't actually provision it to them until Congress refunds it, which the industry kind of looks like it's going to happen in April. But anyways, that's a tangent. Really, the main point is all that I've done leading me to this exact moment, talking to you right now, Eric, and
Hmm.
to our listeners here. I've lived a life that I wouldn't wish upon anyone else. And that's really depressing to hear, right? That's to know that I have spent my entire life thus far doing something that is my stated reason for existence, to be of service, to help others. But yet, at the same time, I'm telling you that I wouldn't wish this upon anyone else. My life, it goes to show that, to your point, you can't only live in service to others, especially if it means that you are unhappy. So I think, there's a lot to unpack there, right? You have to think about, okay, the if you look at how people think on reasons of living, the point of living, a lot of people will say they'll point to religion, they'll point to service, they'll point to themselves. At the end of the day, it's you making that decision. You're telling yourself every single day, every time you wake up, I exist, I continue for XYZ reason or reasons. It's really up to you to determine to create that meaning out of essentially nothing. And although I think I still I've not changed my reason for living. It is still in service to others. I also do recognize that I also need to have a balance, and it's important for everybody to think of having that balance to be able to be happy while at the same time doing what you've decided your goal in life is, what your reason for existence is. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, man, I hear you. I think that you touched on it at the point where you were ending it and talking about like having an individual sense of autonomy. Choosing kind of what it is that makes you happy, that brings you some joy, and then being able to pursue that in service to others, but then also um, making sure that there's a balance in how you do it. I think there's something to say about also people that do like maybe a creative act and they're doing it surely or
Yeah.
solely for their own pleasure in a way, but then other people get pleasure out of it. So I don't know. I mean, it's uh, it's important to not just worry about your own needs, but if you're not meeting your own needs of having joy in your life, then yeah, the sun ain't right here. We got to work on some things here.
For sure, man. And I would say that to our listeners, you do what you can for others, but at the same time, you also need to take care of yourself. It's kind of like when you're on an airplane, they tell you that if the airplane's coming down, that the air masks come out, right? And then they always say put on your own mask first before you put it on somebody else. You gotta be able to take care of yourself, and that's important. You got to be able to do what you need to do to make yourself happy, but also remember, the greater whole. You are part of a greater whole. You're part of a greater community, and you should do what you can for those that you can. Forgive yourself for those that you cannot.
Right. And sometimes you got to recognize when you're on the wrong plane. You might be on a plane and you think you're going the right direction and it's something that's helping others, but then um, maybe it's not as beneficial to others as you think, or maybe they're like, you have a good intention, but the outcome isn't really there. So like, and I don't know, these are things that got to be looked at, especially when it comes to purpose and and how your purpose has an impact on others. It is a balance, but it's also something that evolves over life. Our purposes can change over life, and that's okay too, as far as
For sure.
what passions we're following, or how we're getting joy and the benefit of ourselves and others.
I'm talking about being on the wrong plane, so and making choices that you may have to reconsider later on. I'm about to jump into a new venture, and I'm kind of having that new startup cold feet. As you know, Eric, I'm actually quite a prolific entrepreneur. I more so than others, I would say. I would jump into a new business, but in this case, this one's a pretty expensive one. So I started a Airbnb business, and the concept itself doesn't sound like it's all that unusual, right? But here's the kicker, though. For me, I actually rent out properties from landlords, and then I actually sublet them to my guests, which happen to be Airbnb users. So that's really where the difference is. I'm actually about to start on my first property. We're about to close on a property actually not too far away from my house in Alexandria, and I'm kind of nervous to see how it'll do, but I think you'll never know if you don't try unless you try. So I'm gonna get on this plane. Hopefully, it's not the one that comes crashing down. But
Well,
they're
yeah. How
asking
long's your lease?
well, the lease is a year, but the thing is, it's a house, right, in Alexandria, so it's expensive. So it's 37.50 a month, and then I have to
Oh,
put in deposit. So that's $7,500 right up front. So that's a
yeah.
lot. That's a good chunk of change. And then on top of that, as soon as I get the keys to the house, then I have to go to the design team, right? I have to have a
Yeah.
design team to basically design the entire interior and then furnish it. So that's another anywhere between 8 to 20 grand.
Hmm.
So it's a lot. It's a lot. Um,
What's your estimated um, return that you think you're going to get in the first year of operation after everything's set up? And
So based on our market analysis, we're looking at about about 50 to 60%. I mean, assuming a 50 to 60% occupancy, which I think we can pretty easily get. We're looking at an average of $350, $360 a night. So if you're talking about 360, 15 days, that's $5,400. Minus 3,750, about 1,650. But the thing is, we also have a management fee. If I'm not, I don't think I'm going to manage it myself. So there's
mhm.
that fee too. So if I can make, if I can make a grand, that's a win in my view.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. Well, if you have a management company helping with everything, that definitely takes a lot of the load off.
It
And
does, but
it's
it could be quite a lot though. You know what I mean?
sure, sure. And there's still the risk. of it
Sure.
not filling. But hey, it's
It's interesting. We'll see. We'll see. Like if it doesn't, it does. If it's not filled, then it'll be pretty catastrophic, right? You're talking
mm,
about 37.50 a month, and then on
I,
top of that, you always have like cold feet from it. Okay, so if I rent this property, but then what if another property opens up nearby that's cheaper? So actually, I found another property nearby that just opened. Is a So this house is a single family house, but there's a townhouse nearby that's actually bigger. It's actually like 700 square feet larger, despite being a townhouse, and the rent is like $500 cheaper a month.
mm,
So I'm like, is that? But then again, you have to understand the purpose, right? I'm not renting it to live in it,
right.
or I'm renting it for Airbnb guests, and they're probably going to want a single family property because they're going to want to hang out in the backyard, kick it out, all that stuff. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what is this design, the interior design company that you're working with? How did you come
uh,
about choosing them? Is
so
that through the partnership that you're working with to set up the Airbnb, or you?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that. I am part of a network that does offer design services, but I don't know if I'm going to go with them. There's actually three or four different design companies I'm looking at, so that's why I gave a range because they all are wildly different in terms of their pricing, but you get what you pay for as well. So that's where it gets kind of scary. And then management. Okay, let me tell you guys, if you want to get into this Airbnb business, whether you own the property or if you're trying to do what I'm doing, and I think the popular term is called Airbnb arbitrage, which
Oh.
is really a stupid thing to say. There's no arbitrage behind it, but basically they're referring to you don't own the property, you rent out other people's properties, and then you make it really nice, and then you try to sublease it to Airbnb guests, which um if you try to do that, regardless, it's going to be pretty pricey, and the management fee is going to be anywhere between 10 to 30%, which is a lot, right? I mean, can you imagine? No matter how much you make, they're going to take 10 to 30%. That's a lot, and that doesn't even include. That may not even include um, house cleaning or maintenance guy or any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's true. It's true. Yeah, there's been a few people in Puerto Rico on the West Coast that have said that there's been too many Airbnbs out here, and that not enough people to take them all in. And
yeah,
so
and
it's
yeah, I
interesting.
mean, in those situations where you're in an overpopulated or oversaturated market, then I would be really concerned if you're doing what I'm doing because you can't afford to be on a rental budget on a empty property, right? If you own the property, that's a different story. Yeah, I mean, at worst case scenario, you can sell the property, but if you're
Mm-hmm.
if you're a quote unquote renter and nobody's subleasing it from you, that can get scary pretty quickly. So really not for the faint of heart. I would suggest to anybody that wants to do Airbnb arbitrage to definitely make sure that they work with a network, uh, one that teaches them on how to do things, and also one that you can find a network that actually helps you find properties and does the analysis, or you can actually hire your own team to do that. You can create your own company focused around just finding properties, and then also designing those, or having a vendor do the design on that. So I might actually make a business. I might make a business in the future, just kind of teaching people how to do this, if not a nonprofit, because I think there's a lot of value in kind of teaching people how to become better and be able to um, create value for people visiting different places, and have a place other than a hotel or a motel to go to. So
Mm-hmm. For sure, there is.
I say that even though Next week I'm going to be in San Francisco for my school. I'm a student at two different universities right now because of course I am. But one of which is the University of San Francisco. It's a hybrid program, so I'm down in San Francisco quite often.
Oh,
And
cool.
I never rent an Airbnb there. I always rent a hotel. I don't know.
Mm,
I'm a, I guess you can say I'm just
you're a
an
classy
old dog.
man.
Yeah, no, I'm just an old dog. I just happen to be used to renting
Mhm.
hotels for myself.
I understand
Anyway,
that.
yeah, but wish me luck on that. I'll definitely keep our listeners, tuned in on how my business does on that. The property's in Alexandria, Virginia, so I'll be able to actually physically go there and keep an eye on it, which is I think will be pretty good.
Yeah.
And worst case scenario, I can always rent out my own place for myself, right? I'm already
There
paying
you
for
go. You might be moving.
it. But and
Yeah,
then
wish you
okay.
luck, man. That's cool. What's the degree that you're getting at?
Oh
San
yeah, so my degree at University of San Francisco, my 10th degree, by the way. I don't want to boast, but yeah, it's
Whoa, you're in the
my
double
10th.
digits of degrees, man.
I know.
It's hot
I
in here.
know.
You got a lot of degrees up here.
It's a master's in public leadership.
Mm.
And what does that mean, right? A lot of people might be thinking about, and it's actually a differentiation from, say, a master's in public administration or master's in public policy. Well, how, Sean? Well, MPA, MPP, they tend to talk about how to become a good steward of the people in the form of being a government bureaucrat, of being a government official, being able to work inside government in some career capacity. The master's in public leadership, as the name kind of implies, is how can you be a leader in the public sector, and specifically as an elected official. So the entire Maple program, Masters in Public Leadership, the entire Maple program is built and intended to make students become experts in running campaigns, being elected for those campaigns, and being an effective elected leader at all levels of government. As you know, that is yours truly's best. I mean, my
Yes,
my, my long term
Senator
goal
Tao,
is
please stand down.
I do intend on being an elected official at the federal level at some point in the future. So if any of our listeners would like to support me, just letting you know now, that is where I'm headed toward in life. I'm not setting any specifics or any positions just yet right now. As you know, Eric, I actually did run as a test run for state office before for Maryland House of Delegates quite a number of years ago when I was still a law student. Which, by the way, that was degree number 8 when I was working on my Juris Doctor. I also ran a political campaign just to see what it was like to run for office because you don't really ever know things, right? You don't, no matter whether it's business, whether it's running for office or really anything, you could read about it, you can study it, but you don't really know what it's like until you do it, right? So
Hmm. Truth be told.
that's why I did it. But and that really actually, since we're on the topic of politics, what do you think about the presidential elections? It looks like we're really heading toward the inevitability of a Trump uh, Biden rematch.
I
I don't know.
know, isn't it? Yeah, it's funny that it comes down to this again.
I
And
know. You know
yeah,
that Nikki Haley is the only GOP contender still fighting Trump, and she lost her home state over the weekend. I
mm,
don't, I don't
yeah.
know, but she's committed to staying in until what Super Tuesday is what they call it. So
Dun dun dun. Well, that's good. I mean, you got to keep it interesting. It'd be sad if she left already. Like that would be a bunch of that's too many shenanigans going on. She's got to stay in there for a little longer. Why not?
I agree with you, but a lot of her colleagues and a lot of Republicans have been shouting her down, telling her to quit. And I was thinking to myself, isn't that ironic, right? The Republican Party touts itself as and by the way, we can talk about all sorts of politics here. It's absolutely fine. But the Republican Party touts itself as a party that believes in freedoms and liberties, but at the same time, it cannot even handle the some healthy competition in its own primaries for the next leader, potentially the next leader of the free world. To me, that seems crazy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I understand in some ways. If you're like, all right, we only got one fighter out there. Let's not have these two people on our team beat each other up in the public's eye. So like you could kind of understand why someone on the Republican side would want there to be only one contending against the other team type of thing. So, but in the interests, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to.
Well, I mean, the thing is, look, if she had like 0%, compared to Trump in her home state, oh, that's one thing. But in South Carolina, I think the stats were she was what down by like she had like what 20 she was 20% below Trump, which it's not an insignificant amount, but that's like 60-40, right? And
Hmm.
so that's I don't know. To me, that seems like it's not a that's that doesn't seem like it's enough for Trump to say, okay, you really should just pack up shop. And actually, NBC, I'm reading up the stats now. There was a exit poll by NBC that was done. So among Republicans with college degrees, so basically the educated Republicans,
Hmm.
Trump was only leading 51% to Nikki Haley's 47%, and it was really the uneducated, or I should say, those that don't have college degrees, not that they're uneducated.
Right.
Uh, the exit polls were showing Trump for 74% and Haley only 26%. So it really goes to show that the non-college educated working class in the GOP in South Carolina they really uh they really went all out for Trump. And had they not, I think it would have been a lot closer. I think Trump would have ultimately won regardless. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that it is such a stark difference between those with college degrees and those without. So
Right. Yes. It's those.
keep in
The,
mind, these are all Republicans. This is a primary. It's not like Democrats voted
this
on
is an
these.
example of liberal brainwashing in the higher education. You see what's happening here.
But it's really interesting that so many, and that actually brings another point. Like, why are we supporting Trump when he was, first of all, he was at one point in the past, he was part of the Democratic Party, and he has had although he's extremely populist, he also has a lot of like conservative views, both in his personal life and politically. And I mean, he's old.
Hmm.
He- he's only what 3 years younger, like 3 years younger than Biden.
Right.
And then, which is also yet another irony of the Republican Party, is like, hey, uh, I see so much propaganda saying that Biden is so old he can't function. Well, I mean, last time I checked, Biden is not really in a different age group than Trump. They're
No,
literally
exactly. Not at
they're
all.
they're literally they're literally a few years apart from each other. So, if Biden's is old, so is Trump. So
Right.
uh,
And
I'm curious to see what will happen, but Well, I think who which party I'm rooting for, and
Yes.
actually not a party, but I don't support parties per se. I do generally support one party over the other, but I don't support parties as a blanket. I support individual politicians, and I definitely have a very clear politician I'm rooting for in this Trump Biden matchup.
All right. Well, I hope you're on the winning team. I'll just say that.
You know what? I think you and I are probably aligned on who we want to win. So, and
Yeah, I think so.
I do hope that that team wins too. I'm gonna leave it to our listeners to decide whether or not I'm referring to Trump or Biden here.
Mhm. Oh man, our listeners, they're such important people to us that we want
They
to
are.
give a shout out to some of the listeners out there who are listening. Who do you want to give a
Yeah.
shout out to?
Oh, goodness. You know what? Well, we had in our first episode last week, we had a few a few people joined up during our live premiere because we did a live premiere of of the recording that came right after the airing of the show, and a few of them subscribed. So I'm not gonna call them out, but I would just say thank you for believing in us, and thank you for uh, subscribing to the Sean and Eric show. I think we'll just continue to get better, and we'll continue to talk about interesting things, as time progresses.
Amen.
Oh,
Amen. To that.
and actually, Eric, we actually got quite a lot of responses. Quite a few people reached out to me saying that they want to be guest speakers for our show, which I'm very excited about. In fact,
Ooh.
our next episode might feature a guest speaker. So,
All right. I'm excited.
I'm
I'm curious who it'll be. I know that there's a lot of interest out there on the
for
internet.
sure,
You know.
for sure. Well, so, speaking of people and knowing who listens to our show, we don't actually have any advertisers or anything like that. We're definitely nowhere close to that big, but I do want to give some shout outs to products that I've been using and things like that, because it might be interesting, especially for the entrepreneurs that are our listeners out there, because a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, right? Business folks. So one thing I wanted to give a shout out was a new program I was using called Before Sunset. So Before Sunset AI. Now, what's cool about this is, okay, so all right, I don't know about you, Eric, but for me, I have like a bajillion different email addresses. And
Yes.
one of the most annoying things is if I'm on Microsoft Outlook, um, I don't have like it's hard for me to see all my meetings and also be able to coordinate all my different mail accounts to show my calendar like clearly. So what I have is what Before Sunset AI does is it lets you, it does a few things, but it lets you sync all of your emails. So Google emails, Microsoft Outlook emails, all of it. You can add it all, unlimited. Okay. And then it sets it out into multiple views for you. So it has a to do view where it shows you things that are occurring for that day. But then
Hmm.
right next to it are to dos. So your to do list. So you can write personal notes. Because how many of us go and put on right, like push up sticky notes or notepad and just like jot notes to ourselves on what we want to do for the day, and but then whatever reason the computer restarts or whatever, then you just lost it. Well, Before Sunset AI lets you input notes on the fly, whether it's on the desktop or on your cell phone. They have a cell phone app, and where it doesn't matter if you log off one workstation, you go to another, you just log into your account, and you're able to see your notes and all that stuff, which is really cool.
Hmm.
And then on top of that, if you're part of a company, it lets you sync up with all the other users in your company, and they can actually list that, like they can put it'll show like their events alongside yours, so you know how to like deconflict. You can also it also asks you like how you're feeling today, and if you're the administrator, it actually lets you see what everybody else is putting in terms of emoticons. So like everything's from
Mm.
fabulous to really upset or like sick,
Hmm.
and it gives you a dashboard to see how the general morale of your team is doing, which I
It,
think is it's pretty amazing, right?
it is. It is. I wonder how many of those teammates are going to be honest, though. That's
Oh,
interesting to think about too. They don't want to get the
I
smart
don't
ones
know.
who are angry. Maybe they want to, but I think it's.
They may not even know. Like if you don't tell them, they may not even know. Well, if they listen to the Sean and Eric show, now they'll know. But if they don't, they may never know that that their little clicks on whatever how they're feeling will and translate or be transmitted to the administrator, so your boss can see if you're happy or not. But it doesn't necessarily say like who specifically is happy or sad. It's not trying to penalize. It just has a general team mood. It's kind of like a
Mhm.
survey poll. So
That is cool. And yeah, I mean, shout out to Before Sunset because they did get, on Product Hunt, they got product of the day, product of the week, and month. So, it's something to definitely take a time to look at. Um, Thankfully, my own calendar system, I understand the need to integrate, like, especially if someone's working in the Microsoft world and they have an Outlook calendar and, and be able to integrate that with like a personal Google Calendar, or even I'm with an organization that's also using Zoho Calendar, so I can see how like having a place to reference them all can be helpful. I'm not sure about the to do aspect of it, or the to do list. If you are going to use this as your calendar system, I can see integrating your to do list within your calendar. It does make sense, but me personally, I've been just using a note system within Google Keep,
yeah,
and that works on the accessible via desktop or mobile. But yeah, that sounds cool. Definitely worth checking out some more. Oh,
for
and they got the
sure.
lifetime deal, $49 once paid, get a lifetime deal. I love that.
Oh man, you know what? Right now they have a lifetime deal, and you know what? I'm not even look again, listeners. We're not making any money off this. We're just giving shout outs. But yeah, Before Sunset right now. If you check out their website at beforesunset.ai, you'll be able to snag a lifetime limited lifetime deal for yourself. And I think they may have different license tiers. So, oh yeah, it links to AppSumo, which by the way is my favorite SaaS product purchasing site. They
Mm-hmm.
have they have different license tiers, and if you buy a higher tier, you can actually have a whole member team, multiple member team for your under your license, which I think is pretty sweet. So definitely you can't miss out on this. It is an easy win, easy purchase to make. You're talking about anywhere between what, 29, $49 to like I think the top tier on AppSumo is 199. So that's for 15 that's for 15 users on that license. So it's a pretty sweet deal.
Mm-hmm. Hey, if you do
But
get those multiple licenses, don't be afraid to share one with me. I'll give it a test drive.
oh,
Okay.
hey, you know what, Eric? I'm giving you one of mine, so I'll give
Oh,
you a
you're a
so,
kind soul.
but you
Thank
know
you.
that if you say you're unhappy, I'm gonna start checking up on you though.
I know. You got it's mood tracking. I see it on the website. It's one of
That's
their
right. Mood
with
tracking.
features. We're featuring mood tracking. We're going to track your team's mood. Ooh.
For sure. And actually, I have to say that is a really sweet thing to do because, um, you know, part of one of my roles, my many roles is as a program manager for a major consulting firm, and I lead a team or multiple teams that number roughly 70 or so people, and there's a lot of different teams, and they all have drastically different morale feelings, on any given week or month, just given any number of factors. So this actually kind of makes it easier to be able to know, hey, this is how the team is feeling. So
I think we should just get them those fancy mood rings. Like the health ring that monitors your heart and all the
I think
other.
Doesn't Meta do that or something like that? I know there was a company that does that. They basically have you wear a wearable, and then it syncs up to like the central server of the company, so they can see how you're doing.
Yes, I'm assuming now by now there has to be a few wearable ring companies, and they're basically like health monitor ring tracking. The Aura
For
ring,
sure.
that's the big one. But
Yeah.
I mean, as far
I
as we
mean, to be honest
this,
with you, like I'm cool with that. I know a lot of people probably wouldn't be. They think it's whenever you're talking about health, people get really, really hyper sensitive on and hyper protective on their privacy. But
mhm,
the way I see it is if there are tools that can help me know if there are issues with me faster, then I'm all for it.
yeah, for sure. But I mean,
But
I
I
think
get it.
it'd be
Go
a
ahead.
good thing to be able to just be able to, I don't know, be aware of patterns even within your own life. As far as and getting notifications like it can tell you, hey man, you only slept 6 hours today or something like that. Be wary or you, and then just I think there's some benefits to it for sure, but also it could be super invasive. And imagine if you're like looking at your employees and seeing their sleep hours, like when they're not at work because they're salary employees. You got to make sure they're sleeping enough, and then you call them into your office like, I've been looking at your mood ring records, and I noticed you haven't been sleeping much last week, so I want you to take the rest of the week off and take care of yourself. It'd be cool, but also be kind of bad.
Hey, you know what? I'd be totally cool with that. But no, here's the bad scenario. Let's say, oh, Jane looks like she has been having some heart palpitations. That could be a pretty serious health condition. Well, I guess we're gonna have to let you go.
Mm-hmm.
That like or hey, hey Jane, we needed to talk to you today. Yeah, about your health insurance. We had unfortunately we cannot continue to give you health insurance under the company anymore. You have been elevated to a high risk category. So like I know. So that is that where technology being an aid is crucial, and then like being this technology being provided by a company kind of assists you, from a monetary standpoint from the cost of the tool. Yes, but on the flip side, it's a double-edged sword. N- Now that company has information about you that they can potentially do anything with, and they can make it so that it's not readily apparent that
Mm,
their actions that are adverse to you are due to what they find medically, right? So
yes, a slippery
it's a
slope of.
slippery slope. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that if companies look at the end of the day, personally, I think if companies want to invest in their staff in preventative health by using technology, I fully support it. But I think that companies really be should separate themselves actively from such monitoring, right? They hire it
Yes.
hire it to a third party that is disinterested. Like they have no like, there's no way that there could be I mean remove as much as possible. You can't fully remove yourself from conflicts of interest, but have a third party vendor, maybe have them audit the third party vendor audited as well on a regular basis, but just try to remove the company as much as possible from having any privileged information possible, even if the employees willingly give it, right? Because again, at the end of the day, it always begs the question: does a personal action on a person that is actively giving their health or their health data to the company, is that related to their health? And that's a really serious question, and is probably the best argument one can make as to saying companies should not even be in the business of trying to gauge the health of their employees. So
Hmm.
interesting stuff.
It is right, right. Wow, yeah, because it could have the reverse effect in that sense of, is it really for their health? And man,
Exactly. Well, I mean, it actually reminds me. It reminds me of when I don't want to get too much in the specifics, but I had a thing with the military, a legal thing with the military many years ago, and I needed to have a consultation with the JAG officer. JAG is the Judicial Advocate General Corps, which is basically military parlance for our readers or listeners here. They're basically like military lawyers, and so I consulted with him, and he was totally just nonchalant. It was a major at the time, right? Nonchalant, kind of condescending partially, which, if any of you know any lawyers, that's actually pretty common. It's not
It's not out of
out of
character.
yeah. But for him, he really just did not seem all that motivated to and really that duty of care that one would expect when a legal relationship is established between a client and an attorney. And a large part of that is that even though I was his client, I put that with air quotes here. Um, he was a military lawyer, meaning
Mm,
that he was working for the military. So his real client was the military, even though I was his client within the military. And my issue was with the bigger military, right? So
mm,
So it was a direct conflict of interest, right? And that's really where it ties back to the health comment earlier, which is that conflict of interest can be huge. So drawing back to my uh, 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 my discussion about my time with that military JAG officer, I had written to him like a 30-page document, right? That he needed to kind of review and improve on, and then submit it, right?
mm-hmm.
And 6 months after 6 months, I he did absolutely nothing, and I threatened him. I said, if you don't submit this, then I'm going to the first flag officer. So flag officer is also military parlance for a brigadier general or higher. So all your general levels, essentially. I will go to the first flag officer in his chain of command, and force him to explain why there's such exorbitant delays. And you know what he did? The very next day, he sent me an email back with my original document that I submitted 6 months earlier.
Mm-hmm.
He did nothing except for ran what apparently was a Microsoft Word and spell check. That was it. He didn't do anything else. And he said, "You can go ahead and submit it."
Oh my God.
So,
Wow.
long story short, though, I had to depend on myself in that case because the person that I had to count on had a conflict of interest. So, if you are a staffer out there and you're wearing some health device and you haven't and your company is getting that health information, that conflict of interest can potentially be enormous for you too. So, you know,
Mm,
conflict of interest is a huge issue in many different and that rears its head in many different applications in business.
totally.
Yeah,
And even in politics, man, like I'm all about some publicly funded elections. Like, what
for
we
sure.
gotta have all these crazy conflicts of interest going on. I mean, then again, if you look at like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people receive donations from the same donors in many ways, as far as on like a larger scale. And maybe that's not necessarily the case all the time, but it seems like there could be some potential conflict of interest more.
For sure. Sure. Well, brother, I think we're coming. We have like 7 minutes left until the end of the hour. It's kind of a wild card for the rest of the night. So, you have any topics you want to chat about?
Oh man, topics to chat about. Yes, I'd like to talk about It's coming to me. It's coming to me. A hearses in Asian culture. I don't know, or within Buddhism specifically. Have you seen a Buddhist hearse before?
A Buddhist hearse.
Yes, like where they take the bodies of the dead to the wherever they're going to take you.
Yeah, I can't say that I have, and I feel like that's something that would be drastically different depending on the Buddhist culture, right? Like different cultures in different countries, and then as you know, there are different sects in Buddhism, and they may all have very different views on
Totally. Yeah, like for
on.
me to even say like a Japanese Buddhist hearse would not be correct in the sense that even within Japan you have different sects of Buddhism. But I did nevertheless look, and there I think there are some universal um, Buddhist hearse kind of understandings in some ways, but it's almost like a temple on wheels, man. They're super wild, and I recommend checking it out.
Do you have any specific examples for our listeners?
Yeah, well, there was one on eBay, and if you just well, I guess to describe it in a cool way, imagine just like a regular hearse, you know, painted black, and then on top of it is like a little micro ornate Buddhist temple to the point where it looks like, you know, everything's just like it's like a whole temple, but then it's like shrunk into the size of the back of a hearse on top of a hearse, and oh, it's very it's out of this world, man.
That's really interesting. So,
And it,
so people would carry it, right? To the great to whatever the final resting place is.
right, exactly. You carry the body to the resting place,
Oh
and
man.
you know,
Well, I'm doing some searches on Buddhist hearses, and I'm seeing some that are mounted on cars. It's basically a typical what you would see on a a hearse in the U.S. Right, a Western hearse, which basically one of those longer cars that can fit a coffin. Well, imagine one of those cars, okay, but the back where the coffin would slide in is instead of a regular looking sedan thing, it's this huge hand carved monstrosity that's gilded in gold, and yeah, so yeah, I see that, and apparently there are I see that some of these are out of Japan, and I see some in some of the Southeast Asian countries as well. So it's really interesting. But I don't know how popular it is. Just because I see it on eBay, just because I see it being posted online doesn't mean that it's necessarily a common thing, right? But
right. When Thich
but
Nhat Hanh died in Vietnam, and they had like a Buddhist hearse, I guess you would call it that. It was basically it looked like a pimped out like temple on wheels, and it was carrying his body, and it was all ornate and gold like this. But you know, this
oh
was
man,
yeah, it was
you know what?
wild.
Somebody's selling something just like that right now. A 1987 Nissan President. It's a rare old VIP Buddhist hearse. It is an amazing looking vehicle. It is an old school, classic looking vehicle, and it has this huge, like mini temple on the back of it. It that's pretty nice. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
totally buy it. I would buy it just for. I would buy it just for just the reaction.
I know it's great. It's you
Oh
know,
man.
if driving around a hearse won't get enough of a reaction, driving around with a Buddhist temple hearse is it's where it's at, especially out
Oh
here.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, hearses are actually pretty good vehicles to just drive around in general. I mean, they're kind of like almost like trucks, but sedans.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. I'm checking one out this week. It's a '87 Cadillac hearse, Someone's
Ooh,
selling it here on Facebook Marketplace, so I'll keep you posted.
you can get some pretty good deals with those older cars. I mean, one would imagine they don't run that. I mean, they don't have that much mileage on it, right? Because chances are good they're probably used for very specific purposes, which is transporting bodies. So,
Right, that's a good point. So yeah, if you're gonna use it for everyday use, and you
right.
know that, yeah, I'll be interested to see what type of gas mileage it gets.
Probably not that good.
Yeah, I don't think so.
They're probably like limos, I think. I would imagine.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
it's been a great Sunday night, and I
Yeah,
appreciate you and everyone who's listened here. And I
absolutely.
hope
Thanks everyone for listening in for today's episode. We're and stick around for next week. We'll be back at the same. Well, actually, this is a different time now, right? So we today we actually started an hour later than usual, but it actually doesn't matter to our listeners since we just post it whenever we post it.
yes,
But
but
anyways, it was great chatting, and I'll see everyone next week.
all right, take care, everybody. Be well and be healthy in mind and body.
All right, bye everyone.
Peace.